Good evening, Imran. How are you?
I'm well.
Good, good, good.
How are you?
Fine. Thanks a lot for attending my first ever vlog, and I'm pleased to have you over.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
I am going to do a basic introduction, Imran, for you and on the vlog, and then I would like you to take it up from there and improve a little bit on that. Of course, you know yourself more than me. So here you go. So Imran Rehman is an organization and employee experience specialist with expertise in developing build, measure, learn cycles for teams. Based in Vienna, Imran is a leadership coach as well as a CEO of Kokoro, a web-based tool that helps create the conditions for healthy, high performance for teams and advancing employee experience in real time with a data-informed approach. Did I do a good job, Imran?
You did. It's perfect. I couldn't have asked for more. I really could not.
Good. Can you add on that, please, a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. As you can hear from my accent, I'm from the UK. I grew up in London and currently live in Vienna with my partner, our 2 kids, and a dog. So going back to what you just said, yeah, Kokoro has been a result of many years of work as a coach. Also, my work as a leader in organizations and corporates. But one thing that I think we need to bring into the world today is just the reality of where we are. And I think the current context really provides a perfect sort of situation, an example of why Kokoro is necessary and why we need to continue building it. And what it is, it's about that because everything has become distributed first. We have distributed experiences. We need our teams to work autonomously. We need them to work asynchronously, make decisions based on the information they have and keep moving and improving. Another part of it is that our leaders need to have a look at all this and understand the biggest risk is trust, is actually giving them trust and letting them go. And so they can move. And this will be crucial, I think, to any organization's success in the current context. And that's where Kokoro is at its heart. I mean, Kokoro is a Japanese word, which means the human heart. But it's not the human heart. It's actually the heart of humans collectively and what brings their head, their heart, and their spirit together. And the Japanese manage to say that in one word, where I need 3 sentences in English to get it out of my head and into the world. And what Kokoro does is it really is about providing the right conditions so teams, the right conditions so they can create the environment where teams can excel. And for that, what we've done is we've looked at hundreds of teams across the globe and found out that there are 3 key dimensions that make the difference, and that is psychological safety with belonging and that with flow experiences. So what we do is we bring 3 things together. So we know that we need to measure those 3 dimensions. So for that, we have a survey that measures and provides the data straight back to the team and the team leads so they can start working with it as they work on their weekly sort of timetable, the weekly process, whether you're a product team, or if you're another type of team or a team just together for 3 months. You need data quick to get the team up and going and keep the team's environment in place so the team can feel its best and do its best. So that's number 1. Number 2 is what teams very often need as well, is once they get data, they need to do development work and they need to be supported in this development. That's what we also do. We integrate it into the process of capturing the data and helping the development. And finally, every member of a team knows that a team experience is curated. You've got to make it happen. And if you don't make it happen, then it won't happen by itself. And we ensure that the survey data we get them, the pulse survey data we get them, plus the development, as well as the team experience, are all integrated and put into an ongoing process, week after week, month after month, year after year. So it becomes an ongoing way of giving feedback, creating the right cadence so teams have the right learning cycles and therefore the best performance.
Interesting. So where do we stand with Kokoro, Imran? I mean, is it out in the market or is it about?
We are working with clients and we are building with clients. So we are always looking for progressive organizations.
Right.
Who are moving into team structures, autonomous team structures, into self-organizing structures, and they really want to emphasize the team and help the teams move. That's the sort of organizations we're working with, and we're looking for more organizations. And the more we work with, obviously, the quicker the tool will become a SaaS product and come to market. But it's taken 3 years of research and work, and we are coming to market now. And we have our first, I would say, proof of concept, as well as initial product market fit. And it's an exciting time because it means the product's working.
Great, great. Before I get into my other questions, quick one. You just mentioned flow, and I heard earlier, I think one of the TED Talks regarding flow and languishing. Can you just elaborate on that, because this word is becoming mainstream now?
Well, flow is when you're actually absorbed in what you do. You find that you're able to use your strength at its best. There's moments when you're doing work and you don't realize how time passes. And you experience something where you think, look, this has been great work. I've enjoyed this. I feel more energized after putting this effort in than afterwards. And these flow experiences is something that can happen to everybody and to anybody and everybody. And if we can start creating the conditions for it, then we know that when teams are in the zone or in flow, then their performance will go up. So we know that's why the term comes from psychology. When we say humans are in flow, it was taken from there. And now in the meantime, we know what conditions are necessary for individual flow. And in the meantime, more and more research is showing that there is also a concept called collective flow. But there's more to come on that, I think. I think we know some of the conditions, and there's been a fair amount of research done in the last 3 or 4 years in collective flow. But currently, I think a lot of people know what individual flow is, but there will also be more understanding around the concept of collective flow, or let's call it team flow.
Good stuff. Imran, getting into, some, juicy, interesting issues. It's not issues, just stories. What's your view on the big tech and news from last year? Things really unfolded towards the end of the year. And where do you think, tech did last year that was significant?
Yeah, there was a lot of movement, but I think the biggest movement, and I've made some notes on this stuff.
Yeah, please go ahead.
You sent me these questions up front, didn't you, Najib? So I sat down and really thought about this and said, like, what would I say if and you did ask me the question, what would I say? And the first thing that has really come to me, I think, has been a big movement in well-being and the human employee.
Imran, we've lost your voice somehow. I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, I haven't done anything.
It's okay now.
Oh no, my internet went down most probably. I think that's what went down.
It's all right now.
Shall I carry on?
No, sure, go ahead, please.
Okay, cool. So I think there's been a massive movement in that space, in the sense that in how we become more inclusive and create a better feeling of belonging for our people. So we look at marginalized groups. We've seen big movements happen over the last 2.5 years. And I think that's been a big movement. And I find that's also impacted tech and created a lot of discussion around tech, of what type of tech is having a positive effect and a negative effect. So I'll definitely look at the human or the employee becoming a centerpiece in our discussion over the last 2 years, because we need to look after their well-being and take care and show more compassion towards how they perform and how they live their lives.
Okay.
I think another part has been very, very big is in the last 2.5, in the last 2 years and last year, we've realized how when things become scarce, what it does to us. I just use one example: semiconductors. They've become extremely scarce, haven't they? And how it's impacted just industry, and how supply chains have impacted us, and what people have done everywhere to deal with the scarcity and try to deal with it. And that also means that's impacted our productivity. And I think we've over collaborated in some situations to a point that we've burnt ourselves out. And I think another part has been just what we've seen last year in tech is the amount of talent we've had. The innovation and the speed at which we are learning, on the one hand, versus where in other spaces we've seen a great resignation, a complete what you called languishing effect, where people are saying, I don't want to live my life like this anymore. I see my true purpose in something else. And you've seen, the people leaving, attrition. You've seen people finding new ways in their lives. So there's all these things that are coming together, I think. And I think that's really been 222. And I haven't still finished really, because I was thinking, hang on, there is more. I think there's been a big question around productivity in 2022 and whether this tech is actually helping us. I think there has been a big lie sold to us around the concept of productivity, and that illusion of getting everything done has not worked. And the work-life balance concept of 25 years plus has not worked. So there's been that aspect which has impacted tech. At the same time, MS Teams, Zoom, Miro, all the products out there that help us to work digitally across this across the globe. They've improved and they've got better and they've scaled like crazy. And finally, I think the last part has been tech and impact investing coming together and people really realizing how important our SDGs are. My focus point with Kokoro are on goal 3 and goal 8. I'm all around good health and well-being, and as well as decent work and economic growth. So you can see that even Kokoro has a concept behind it where we say, well, look, we need to create environments for our teams and people to excel and also feel that they are recovering. And in fact, recovery comes first and then performance comes afterwards.
That's great. No, it's interesting that you mentioned regarding well-being. And I mean, we have been hearing like around 3 years ago, there was this big rush about happiness and everybody was the happiness guru. And now happiness has just disappeared from the vocabulary. What happened to happiness suddenly?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm a bit critical when it comes down to the word happy. Why? Because it's almost like there's some sort of universal truth behind it, that every culture and language we have on the planet has the word happy in it. So if you just took our word from Urdu, hushi, is it happiness? Does it mean happy?
No.
No.
you don't, is not happy. Hushi is not happy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So every language and every word, and I think this universal use of the English word happy, I think that's problematic at its core. What I think you can look at are words like contentment, which is a thing that you look at how is somebody feeling within a context? Do they feel content? You can ask them, are you content today? Then they have to look at the whole situation and the whole context in which they find themselves. So, and I think we veer down the wrong road there when we just look at one word like happy. I don't think it is about being happy. What today makes you happy could make you unhappy tomorrow.
Ron, I need to jump to the second question.
Yeah, please do.
Time right now. Now I want you to look at your, whatever magic glass or something, and tell me what you see, for tech in 2022.
Well, when you asked me this question, I first sat there, oh God, I don't know enough companies. I'm not knowledgeable enough. I question my own knowledge there, even though I'm connected with this world. And then you think, God, do I need to mention companies? The more I thought about it, the more I started falling into little like trends rather than organizations. So I got 3 trends for you.
All right.
I think the first one, I called it scaling vitals. And I think there is going to be something around energy, health, construction, and edtech. Okay. And we're going to see great movement in those 4 areas. So like when it comes down to energy, we're going to look at fusion energy. I think there's more movement happening there than we think. I think we're close. I don't think it will happen next year, but there's going to be movement happening there. People understanding what actually fusion is and how it could help us in the years to come. I think there's also in the area of battery, solar, wind, hydro, nuclear energy. All these places are going to have a big discussion, and we're going to see more movement happening, and also software to run those places better. Okay. So even old hydroelectric plants need software, and how do you run them better? Okay. Then I think there's going to be health. I think you can see what happened in the last year with the virus. And then what you also have is edtech, which I think is going to give access opportunity to millions of people. I think there's going to be a lot of movement happening in edtech as well, where not only current universities and education establishments, but newer ones are going to be moving faster in a different way with micro sort of lessons, sessions, whatever you want to call them. There'll be some sort of nugget sort of based approach to education. I think that's going to be happening as well. The second one.
There's quite a movement, right? We're talking about this, especially when it comes to ed tech and ed, that the degrees aren't as valuable anymore as it used to be. You can get degrees. I mean, the last year has really.
Well, you and me have had this discussion. You know my opinion about MBAs and
that's right,
and education overall. So I think these will all merge. I think when you look at energy, health, and say construction, where we're also seeing 3D printing happening, you're going to see lots of different people come together, and it's going to require different perspectives, different thoughts, people coming from different angles with different ways of education. That's going to find new solutions, and I think that's what this is showing. It's happening, and I think 2022 is going to be a year of a lot of discussion, where we have to get policy, where we have to get lots of things right. And that's my second point. I think there's going to be, I think there might be some new stuff that comes out. There might be a new product. There might be a new tech solution to something or an organizational solution to something. But I think the biggest thing that's going to change is going to be transparency and policy. I think we've got to start talking about accountability and more about governance and how it's going to, how it needs to be set up so we can use the best parts of AI and the best parts of blockchain. And with AI, I think one of the biggest, sort of negative effects is the way it's, how it's biased and how it's labeling things in systems and structures and impacting society. And I think on the blockchain side, it's looking at cryptocurrency. And I think next year we'll see a first movement towards governments really taking a big step or a first small step towards getting involved and doing something, because they need to be there. Without them, we won't have the stability. Without the governments, we need their support in creating that stability. And the final one for me is all about remote work. I think that's going to be a big movement. I think in the last year and the last 2.5 years, we've only gone through the first little phase of actually realizing we're not very good at it. And we're going to be in 2022, we're going to start working up the clever way of working. And I think there's going to be a lot of movement in this space, and there's going to be a real focus on teams. I think people are going to start realizing teams are the way to go. And I think that means for organizations going through transformation, they can't force things anymore. You can't force a team to do stuff. If you do, they're gone. People will turn off their cameras, they'll disengage, they'll remove themselves, or they'll leave. And because it's going to be a talent war, there will be people looking for better places to work. And the ones that set up themselves to serve that great talent, they're the ones who are going to get those people. And that means for leadership, they have to get out the way as quick as possible, create the environment so teams can deliver. And those are the teams that are going to innovate and create so many different ways of businesses. And then finally,
paradigm shift. Yeah. Wow.
It is. It's happening, and it's accelerated. It's fast.
That's right.
So I think those are. I don't know if I've answered that question.
No,
but I tried to.
Fantastic. Definitely, it is going. You're right on the spot. And Imran, your last thoughts on the challenge of ethics. When it comes to the new tech which is coming in Web 3.0. There's blockchain. People are running the thing. So how do you see the question of ethics, because it was not answered in Web 2.0, and now we have jumped to the Web 3.0 right now?
Well, I'm not an expert in this field, and there are many people out there who could maybe answer that question better. But what I feel as somebody who has been part of this to one degree or another is how it swings from skepticism to excitement. And I think that is where it needs to be. But somebody needs to hold that space and ensure that actions come out of it. I don't know how we can do that, but I think we need it. We need policy, we need ethics. We need to put tech in a space where it's able to innovate, have a positive impact on society and the globe, and at the same time understand where it's going too far or where it needs to discuss and find out what's the best way forward. What we don't want to see is like what happened at Google, where suddenly one of their top AI researchers on ethics lost her job, and it went into a complete Twitter went mad, everybody went mad. And why is this happening? We don't understand what's going on here. Somebody was looking at what does it mean, and why do we need AI, and what's the best way of setting it up? So companies like Google are investing money into this and see it an important topic, but somehow I get the feeling that it's not being taken as seriously as it should. And that comes across as skepticism. And the other side is there's always the people that are real what do you call them? Evangelists, aren't they? They stand up from them. They're super excited that this is going to be the answer to all our problems. And I think it's always a stodgy road when it comes down to ethics. And the stodgy road down the middle is where the answer very often is.
You're right. Imran, I have a question. I mean, I come from Pakistan, and of course, living in the Middle East for quite some time. Web 1.0, 2.0, whatever, the so-called third world has always been a back office where they've been doing the development for the original ideas that come up from the West, which, all credit to them. And the back office keeps churning out these solutions. Now, when the era of apps came in, the original apps again started off somewhere in the West, Silicon Valley or anywhere else, and they just get renamed into local language, and it's the same thing. My question is, how do we inculcate, the aspect of original ideas in a society where they're not just being a back office and just waiting to take their startup to a certain level to get taken over by a big Western powerhouse, but actually create an original idea? I know this was not a part of the original discussion.
Oh, that's a good question.
But your idea of Kokoro is original, and that's the reason I asked you this question.
It all begins with creating environments. For me, it always has done. It's environments in which we then give people not best practices, but we allow them to have emergent learning experiences. And based on that, people who create these spaces should allow them to run, knowing that money at the beginning will be lost. Innovation inherently has sunken costs. You begin by losing money. You always, there's no innovation unless it's lucky and a real fluke that it then springs to great profit and great win and great benefit for anybody. And I think that's what it's about. And I think there is this whole idea of the way we all set up, is that innovation is something that happens because you planned it. And if you project manage it correctly, then it'll happen, it won't. And I think we still struggle in understand that we don't have to copy other people. And I think that's one of the things that really gets me, is that this is whole idea that if you look at, whether you look at Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and our universities, we have also copied them from the West. And the interesting thing would be, is how would our concept of education look like? We've got thousands of years of history. With whatever empire you look at, if you look at where our people are today, what would our modern Pakistani university look like if you let local people get on with it and say, look, design a university, and we'll put all the money behind you and all the backing behind you, and let you grow something different and something special that serves the local communities and environments here. I think that's what it's about. And this is, I think it was an old book I once read called Karaoke Capitalism.
Okay.
And I think that book sums it up actually to the point. It's just copying. We're copying and pasting. And the way I think we need to do this is, how do you create an environment in which you don't need to build, if you need a light, you don't need to build your own light. Light technology's got to a point where you could do with any light. So you don't need to invent that to put it on the table. You can buy what's needed, that's already out there, that works as well. But when it comes down to looking into the future and saying, what does our communities need? What does our country need? Based on our climate, based on the way we do business, the way we are as people, there you need space and room to discuss, to decide, to try, to make mistakes, to learn, and keep going until you find something. And I find in Pakistan, there is something. Weren't they the first country in the world that, I could be completely wrong here now, Najib, was to create a first warning sign for people who are epileptic, so they can put something on your wrist,
really?
And it will warn you before you have a seizure, which is great.
Yeah,
and it was one of the first, and it was it was an innovation that came out of Pakistan, and has been really, really successful. So it would be good to look at that and see, why did that happen? And very often you find behind it was must really a story. Somebody's brother or sister who was epileptic, and another part of the family member said, I don't find this fair. Why can't we have something to help my family member? And it was out of that benefit that this innovation came. And I'm sure if you allow people to bring their stories into this environment, you'll have a lot more innovation happen. Because very often, nearly all the stories I know over in Europe, it's because something was not serving somebody.
Imran, I've got the last 2 minutes left. 1 minute is for you to have a message for students from all over the world with all these changes. What would be your message? You've been a teacher for quite some years in Germany. So this 1 minute message to the students.
Well, I think it's about holding space. I think it's it's easily said, is that no matter what discussion you come into, if you're not threatened in the situation, if you're not being hurt in that sense, somebody's being racist to you or sexist to you or discriminating you or hurting you in one way or another, then but if you find somebody gives you an opinion you do not like, or you find somebody saying something to you where you do not agree with, then learning to hold space. So there's one skill I think we all need, is to be able to hold space. And even when you might not like that person's opinion, speak to them as if you are giving face to them. And that is what's going to prolong our discussions and create the best discussions without us polarizing and heading in different directions. So, if one family member is a Trump voter, if one family member is loves vaccines and the other one doesn't, learning to hold space and to continue that discussion and thinking about how we hold space is what I would recommend any young person to learn, because I think that soft skill is going to be the soft skill that's going to help many a team, many a company, many an innovation to be successful. And the last 1 minute is for the books you're reading nowadays, our favorite topic. What are you reading? Oh, do you know, I'm going to be very, very honest here. I'm not reading any books at the moment. Really? I read articles, I read parts of books. Okay, what are you reading? Which article are you reading nowadays? What's give me a good website. I'm reading a lot around, I have to say a lot. There's 2 or 3 things I'm reading around, and I think it's around fairness, around inclusion, around diversity and community. Okay. Those 4 things I read a lot around, but I made a decision at the beginning of 2022. No, at the beginning of 2021, sorry, a year back, that I want to put everything into practice I have read. Okay. And that was one of the reasons I said I don't want to read any books, because I was so busy reading books that I forgot to put into practice what I read. Okay, Imran, thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah. And I'm sure that, we're going to have many more of these discussions in the coming future. And, all the best for Kokoro. I mean, we'll just keep it up, Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Najib. That's fine.